Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to your Thursday weekly live. I am Isabel Tierney, and I am the founder of the Feel Good Life methodology, and also called the Stress Reset methodology. And Mary's in. Good morning, Angel. How are you this morning? I'm so happy you're here. And I think you must sit at like 8:59 Mountain Time and just waiting to come on, because I don't think I have ever seen you be the second. But Bren is the second one on. So good morning. Well, actually, it says there's 6 people on. So I am seeing Mary and Bren right now. I am seeing Kathy in the room as well. Yay! It's so interesting how, and Mary Pat is here. I know that I might say this every week, but it blows me away that actually Facebook Lives are one of my favorite ways to engage. I mean, I love in person, obvi. I love my Zoom calls because I get to see all of your faces. But there's something about also seeing your names pop up and really just knowing that you're there. I energetically know you're there, and that compared to like a video, when I shoot videos for my reels where it's like I'm talking to nobody, I have to just imagine that there are people in the room. Oh, I am not made for that. I am made for connection. That's when I thrive. So thank you for showing up this morning. Would you please write down on a 1 to 10? 1 is you're all the way, red zone, stress response. 10, you're all the way, green zone, relaxation response, thriving, open, grateful, inspired. Where are you at this morning? I would love to know how everybody is coming into the room. So I know it always takes a moment for me to get the hellos and for me to get the speaking. So if you can go ahead and write that. You are here. You are here. Great way to kick off the day. Glad to be here with you and everyone. Yeah, I love that. You, Mary Pat, you are at a 9. Good morning, Chrysanthi. You show up every week too. It's really cool to see you. Good morning, Raven. Good morning, CME. I don't know why I get this really weird little voice when I talk to my daughter. That's not the way that I talk to her all the time. Good morning, Sue. So Sammy's at a 9, Raven at an 8. Good morning, Susan. You are at an 8. Mary, 10 plus. Sarah, good morning. You're at a 7. You just did an Eric meditation, so you are at a 9. Amazing. You're like on board, Kathy. Like you are such an amazing embodiment of what happens when we show up fully in this work. Good morning, Marva. I love Chrysanthi writes 7.79. You have learned well from our community that it's never, well, it can be an 8 or 7 or 9, but then the more you do this work, the more you get to know yourself. You start realizing, I'm at a 7.5, I'm at a 7.2. Okay, Kat, I'm sorry, but you gotta go. I'm at a 7.79. I think it makes it fun too. And really, these numbers, first of all, I think many of you know this, these numbers are subjective, right? What might be a 9 for you might be different than a 9 for me. And what might be a 9 for you one day might be a different 9 some other days. And we also all know this, we could be a 9 physically, for example, or emotionally, but not somewhere else, maybe not relationally. So the more we get to become ninjas, the awareness part of this work, which is tracking ourselves on our feel-good scale, the more we can then do micro adjustments instead of being big ones. Like many of you know, I got an endoscopy yesterday, and because there was the possibility that they were going to do a bigger surgery if there was something actually wrong with my bile duct, they intubated me. And so today I'm sore physically, and I didn't really sleep well. I was up at 5 something this morning. So physically, I'm like a 6. right? But emotionally and mentally and spiritually, I'm at a 10. And so what does that tell me? That tells me that today I need to take good care of myself physically, because that's the place that's lagging. It's appropriately lagging, but it's still lagging. Chrysanthi, I have painters in the house. Well, and so please, I can still hold a 7.79. I love that. Good morning, Carrie. Carrie, I'm asking people as they come in on a 1 to 10 on the feel good scale to let us know where you're at. Sammy, that makes me so sick to think about it. What? Am I going under surgery, honey? You're just so sweet. I have like the most incredible children. Good morning, Victoria. Good to see you this morning. Oh, makes me really happy. You are at a 9 today, Carrie. Well, so glad. And so, oh, am I being intubated? Well, Sammy worked at Swedish Medical Hospital in the ER room, so she's seen a lot of things in her time there. And so I imagine thinking about her mom being intubated is even more impactful than most of us who can only imagine it. Good morning, up 7, frustrated trying to find the Facebook Live. Yeah, I know there's a lot of Facebook groups, and this is the place that I do all my Facebook Lives. I actually think that within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to get this thing called I forget the name, some sort of an app or software program that will allow me to share this live also on my personal page, because I'd love to be able to stream this to both pages. So I don't think it's going to change much for anybody here, but just know that. Thank you. So glad that I am well too. So let us get started about today's topic, which is the gifts and difficulties of owning our light. And as you know, last week we spoke about the gifts and difficulties of owning our darkness. And so many of you, including myself, said, well, there's also, we have a hard time owning our darkness a lot of the times, but we also have a really hard time owning our light. And I remember first realizing that, and it really blew me away in the language of the methodology. What I realized working with client after client after client is that they actually had been trained, because most of my clients that I work with have already done a lot of self-development work. Many of my clients have done years of therapy, years of coaching. They've taken self-development courses. So they've done a lot of work on owning their darkness, their shadows, their core beliefs, their core wounds, right? We're really well trained in the self-development world to do that. But what I started finding out was that people actually struggled with being in the highest frequency levels, like owning their lights, like being truly thriving. And I got really curious about that. So it's something that I've studied in myself and with others for a long time. So it's actually a topic that I'm really excited to share. Let's talk first about why is it important to own our light, right? And I have my notes, so I'll be referring to them from time to time, because I love being really both having the linearity and the structure of my outline so that I can flow within the outline. So I boiled it down to this really simple sentence. We can't create heaven on earth for ourselves or this planet if we don't own our light. So I'm going to say that again. We can't create heaven on earth on this planet for ourselves or for others if we don't own our light. So I want you to imagine yourself that you're like a lighthouse, right? We've talked about this metaphor. It's one of my favorite metaphors to think about ourselves. And this lighthouse can go down, dim down, all the way to a 1, and turned up all the way to a full light. And so imagine being a lighthouse. So let's talk about first the impact on this planet to create heaven on earth. If you are dim, right? If you're 1, 2, 3, how are the proverbial boats going to see you? The metaphoric boats going to see you? They can't. In order for you to create the impact you want in the world, and when I talk about impact, you don't have to be Oprah. I'm talking about the impact like I had yesterday, for example, with all the nurses at the hospital, that because I shone my light bright and I stayed green, they showed up so bright and so green, so much so that I literally had one of the nurses, the French person, whisper in my ear as I was getting intubated, not intubated, as I was getting the anesthesia. He whispered, You're safe. We're taking good care of you. You'll be okay. Everything's going to turn up well. And so much so that the anesthesiologist was like, wow, you're getting VIP service. Like he literally said that because I think it was unusual to have a nurse whispering to a patient, you're going to be okay. You're okay. You're safe. And I believe, right, that because I was in my full light, I allowed others to be their full light. So what do you think about that? I always want to dialogue with you guys. So that's one thing, right? If we're like, oh, I don't. So for those of us who are healers or coaches, want to build a practice, if we don't show up as our full selves and not just the darkness, in our light, in our triumphs, in our successes, then how can people see us and how can they get a sense for, I want to live like that. Oh, I didn't realize it was possible to live like that. If we don't show others how it's possible to live in the brightest lights because we're embarrassed, because we don't want to be different than, because we don't want to be braggy, because we want to be humble, right? So I know, Mary Pat, isn't that an incredible story? That just brought tears. I know, Bren. So literally, like I have tears coming down my eyes as I'm starting to go under, because this man in French. No, I don't remember now whether he told me that in French or in English. I think he might have told me in English at that point. He's literally talk about feel-good angels, right? I just realized that. Talk about having literally a human angel having me go under at the highest frequency of if there was any fear in my nervous system, he soothed it with his loving words. I see it as your openness allowed that sweet experience to happen. Right, and when we're open, we let our light shine. If you don't open all of yourself, and again, today I am going to purposely emphasize that we're not talking about our darkness. If you have not listened to last week's lives about owning our darkness, please listen to it. And I'm going to say a caveat this morning. We're not talking about the darkness today. It is vital to own our darkness. It is vital to take responsibility for our darkness. And that's all I'm going to say today. Today, the focus is on owning our light. Because again, I actually think we get addicted to owning our darkness. And I think the process of owning our light is actually just as, if not more difficult than owning our darkness. So back to my theory, we can't fully create heaven on earth if we don't own our light for ourselves and for others. Like if you don't own your light, you can't ever fully thrive. You can't feel good. You become this empty vessel. Okay, I'll speak for myself. When I wasn't owning my light, I deflected it, right? And I'll talk about the brain physiology about that in a minute. I deflected it. People every day would tell me, you've changed my life. And you know what? I was like a freaking Teflon pan. Do you know what I'm talking about? People give you a compliment and it feels like it can't even land fully in you, let alone you can't anchor it. That was me most of my life. And so in Buddhism, they makes me think of the hungry ghosts. So if you never can absorb and metabolize people telling you something about your light, and if you don't own your light, you literally can't digest it, you can't metabolize it, you can't own it. And so then you become like a hungry ghost. You're constantly trying to get fed by other people to tell you that you are good enough and worthy enough and powerful enough and all the things. But like a hungry ghost, if you ever seen an image of what the hungry ghosts look like, they're like these really skinny monsters who have a really, 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 really long skinny necks. They can't take in, and so they're always hungry. So for years, I was always hungry for people to tell me that I was a bright light, but I couldn't own it, so it never could land. Does that land with you? Is this something you're familiar with? Chrysanthi, I agree, but I have noticed some folks will continue to stay in darkness regardless of, that's got nothing to do with you, how bright others are. Yeah, that's not your business. Your business is not to track anybody else's darkness or light. Boy, is this a lesson that I have to keep learning. It is such a difficult lesson. Because especially when we start working on our light and we notice how good it feels and we notice how impactful we are and how much better we are in the world, like we get so enthusiastic about it. Own your light. And then to our partners, why don't you own your light more? To our children, why don't we? To our friends? Not our business. We are not supposed to know who is supposed to do what. It is not my job to know who anybody else's soul is when they're supposed to own their light and own their darkness. Now, people can come to me, right? Participants in my course, private practice, and even B2B, and they can say, I want help owning my light, or I want help owning my darkness. Okay, you've asked me for my help, but if you don't ask me for my help, it is not my business to tell you you should own your light more or you should own your darkness more. Got it? It will never work unless people give you permission. So even if everybody around you, especially when we first start doing this work of owning our light, then let's talk about this. What are some of the fears we have about if we really start owning our light? And a lot of times we're scared that what will people think? Marianne Williamson says, we ask ourselves, who do you think you are? And we project onto others, and it may actually be true that they too will think, who does she think she is owning her light, parading on Facebook like that, showing how successful she is. Now there's a difference, right? I want to be clear about this. There's a difference between red zone, ego-based owning our light that's meant to convince others, right? That's about manipulating others. That comes from actually insecurity. And then there's the truth, and it is not a pushy experience, and it is not a manipulative experience, and that is of just allowing a light to shine. That's really different. So I actually really love this point. So let me see what you guys are saying. Love this metaphor. Yeah, right? The lighthouse. And so it's funny that I have my outline and I was talking about being able to have the structure, but I'm seeing myself dipping into all the different pieces that I want to cover today. And one of them is, I want to make sure that we know that when we practice owning our light, it is no different than owning our darkness. By that I mean, we've got to go slow. We don't go from a 3 of dimness of owning our life to a 10, light to a 10. That we can have moments, maybe you're in a group, you're in a community like this one, where you're like so welcomed and so invited to own your light that you have no trouble. And then you hang up, and then you're at home or with friends or at work, and people are like, what is she doing? So suddenly, whoop, we dim our light again. So the process of owning our light to go from a 3 to a 4 to a 5 to a 6 to a 7, even the 8 to 9 to 10 is a lifelong practice. I noticed this morning, even right before I get on the Facebook Live, there's a voice that says, who do you think you are? Showing up like that. Teaching. Who do you think you are teaching? Who do you think you are? Thinking that there's any way that you can impact the world. And so I just have to be with that voice. So this is so needed today. I'm so glad. Absolutely. Yes, working on it. Victoria says, owning our light requires us to feel a kind of freedom, ease, a simple love, a deep connection, perhaps an emptiness and a fullness. Beautiful. Right. It's the empty full is such a gorgeous paradox that I'll see if I have time to explore it more. Indeed, difficult, worried I am too much for others who don't understand, right? Too much. How many of you raise your hands in some form or thumbs up? How many of you tell yourself, if I fully own my light, I'd be too much? I want to hear from that. Yes, I want help owning my light. Raven, others will judge my light, which I'm learning doesn't matter. Woohoo! And my light won't be enough. Oh yeah. And it won't be enough. The funny thing about core beliefs that just literally has spent a lifetime exerting their power onto us is they're bullshit. If you actually take a look more closely at your core beliefs, how do you say loop? That's a French word. Thing that makes things bigger. You look through the eye. I don't know what it's called in English right now. when you look at them more close, when you zoom in on them, I'll keep that really simple, and you start seeing like, wait, I won't be enough light for what? I am too much for whom? And when you really zoom into a core beliefs that have literally guided your whole life, you find that they just dismantle because they speak these global truths that scare us so much. But actually, when you break them down, it's like, yeah, it's true. Raven, I'm using you as an example, but I don't have to use anybody as an example, actually. It is actually true that for some people, you might be too much. Your light might be too much. And it is actually true that for some other people, your light won't be enough. Okay, so are you going to spend your life being like an acrobat? Ooh, I'm with people who think it's going to be too much. I need to change that. Let me dim it. Oh, I'm with people who are going to think I'm not enough. Let me pull it up. Let me see if I can get brighter. Be like a peacock. Because at least for this moment in time with these people, I need to be more light than I usually am. Just feel that. I feel it. Feel the exhaustion of trying to make everybody around you feel like you have just the right amount of light. What is just the right amount of life to make everybody around you comfortable? And that brings me to one of my bullet points, which is, how did you learn about how much light was safe for you to hold and to embody and to express? How did you learn? Magnify. Yes, a glass magnifier. That's right. Oh, I love all the thumbs up. Hi, Eric. That's how I hold back to talk about my light. It's so darn sad. I was scolding my best friend when I invited her to celebrate with me and my husband by receiving my master's. I was scolded by my best friend. Wow. Now, the thing about it, guys, is the reason we get scared of owning our light when people scold us for it or judge us. You can see the look and whatever it is because they are scared to own their light. That is all that is happening. People who judge you for being too much, too bright, they call you bragging, you're not humble enough. Those are people, all you've got to know, if you put your green zone lens on, not your red zone lens of like, oh no, I gotta hide. But your green zone lens, and you hypothesize about what's happening in their world. And what's happening in their world is that they're actually scared to own theirs. And I'll speak for myself here. I've been thinking all morning of this example of she's a friend, a colleague, and I've worked with her too. She's a sales lady. I won't give her name, but she's a really potent coach. And she shows up on social media. Her pictures she's in like bright red suits, and she is, her in mansions, in positions of power. And up until recently, I used to judge that. And instead of staying with my judgments, I had to ask myself, what am I scared to own? And I might not have the exact same look and feel that she does, right? She's a salesperson. She's trying to sell luxury with money, making more money. But what is my expression of me in my full light? That's what you've got to ask yourself, and then to not let anything or anyone dictate what that should look like. Do you hear me? You identify what does it feel like, look like, sound like for you to own your fullest light that you're capable today, which you'll get better and better and better as you keep practicing. And then not let anything or anyone turn that light down. And again, I want to be clear. If you're trying to show this light comes from your ego and from insecurity and from low self-esteem, people will feel that. And for me, guys, I always ask for feedback. right? Meaning, no, that's not true. I don't know if I always ask for feedback because then it's too easy then to be changing myself for everybody else. But I track that inside myself. And actually with the people I really trust, I ask for feedback. And then I listen and then I take in what they say. And I check with myself. Am I doing this from insecurity? Am I showing up in this post from insecurity? Like what is my intention? Am I really just wanting to liberate my light? So where did you learn? Where did you learn about how bright or not bright you should be? So there's childhood environment. There's our cultural environment. I think as women, especially, we are told we should be nice, right? Nice. Don't outshine anybody else. Don't outshine other women. So I'm generalizing, of course. We might have learned from teachers. You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking that somewhere in our consciousness, I imagine that we hold examples, our beautiful evolutionary brain that makes sure to remember dangerous examples. Martin Luther King, JFK, Marilyn Monroe. I imagine that we have somewhere images of people who really shone their lights and they literally got killed for it or killed themselves because it was too much. So that's another thing that I wanted you guys to think about. Do you hold somewhere unconsciously examples of people shining their lights and how dangerous that is, right? And even when we think about actors and famous people, on one hand, we think, oh my God, they've got everything. And on another hand, we also read about how depressed they are and addicts they are. So the thing about owning our light, we can hold many unconscious beliefs about that, which start in childhood. And the more you get childhood ones that tell you, don't play too big, the more you're going to find examples in the world, of course, of playing too big is dangerous. Does that make sense? So let me see what else you guys are saying. Thumbs up, magnify, willingness to be fully present and witness my life and own it. Yeah, beautiful. This is inspiring me, says Sarah. I am working on a presentation and discussion for community meeting. I was thinking of focusing on challenges, but I am going to focus on light instead. I love that. I know. I don't know how much people in the self-development world focus on that because I still think it's almost something to be embarrassed about, except for a few people who do it and then we get jealous about them. We love them, right? We put them on a pedestal and then they come crashing down. And I think with the whole cancel culture, I think it's created a lot of fear, especially in the coaching community and the speaking community, the self-development community. Like, ooh, you better not get too bright. Because you make one freaking mistake, some of them are really big, I'm not underestimating that, but the fear is there's going to be something I'm going to do and I'm going to crash. I love that example. It sounds stressful. I don't know because I had an amazing childhood. Yeah, sometimes it could be, Sammy, you could be energetically carrying my shit. You know, we don't just genetically pass stuff, and it's not just environmentally with the people we love, right, our parents, but sometimes we might energetically, Sam, you might be taking on things that I've taken on to also help heal that. And again, you are this lovely, lovely, lovely young woman. And I've seen you in your life about how you've had to with friends, right? With friends and maybe even boyfriends. I'm again talking to all of us. How have you had to dim your light? Because maybe some people in your life struggled with depression, or some people in your life, this is for all of us, struggled with addiction. So if we have people close to us who have a hard time owning their light, it's not easy to own our lights. It's not. And we think that somehow not owning our light is going to make them feel better because at least they're not going to feel the gap between where they are and where we are. So let me know how that lands, guys. Yeah, Raven says, anytime I want to share good news, my brain says, nope, that's bragging, Raven. Yeah, I can't be my authentic self if I can't own my light. Correct. Excellent point. I love how your nurse owned his light by telling you were safe. I think that, he said to me, speaking French, for those of us who have a native language that we don't get to speak often, when we get to speak it, it's like, I don't know how to say it. It feels like instant connection. And then we just chatted and chatted and chatted while I was waiting. And he kept coming. Can I help you? Anything I can do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? And then he came up to me and he's like, I'm so excited. I'm the one who gets to bring you to the OR and be in the OR with you. And this is what happens when we own our light and create connection, right? Because often when we own our light, then the desire for connection, for surrendered, open, rich, undefended, that's the word I was looking for, just automatically arises through us. At least I'll say for most of us. For some of us, maybe owning our light means you actually are more self-contained and you don't need as much connection. For me, when I'm in my full light, I want connection. This is why I love these Facebook Lives so much, because it makes me fully embody my light and get connection with you. And I freaking love it. It's why I love doing the apprenticeship program. It's why I love doing Sacred Sundays. So if you knew, Eric says, the universe, God, is asking you to own your light to help spread love and peace, could you drop the stories hiding that light? Yeah, Eric, we began with that my hypothesis about why it's so important, like why are we talking about this topic? And what I said is we can't create heaven on earth for ourselves or others if we don't own our light. And so if we don't own our light for ourselves, like we can't shine as brightly as we could, and we don't feel as good as we could. Owning our light, guys, just saying, in case you need a reminder, owning our light feels so good. And it's such a difference from the times that I haven't owned my light, which was most of my life, and you just feel empty. And it doesn't matter, as I was saying earlier, how many people come and tell you what a bright light you are. You are a hungry ghost. You are an empty ghost, and nothing lands. And all you feel is that you need more and more. Whether for me it was more food for so many years and more accolades for so many years, because I was empty. I didn't believe I was a light. And if you don't believe you are a light, a bright light, it doesn't matter how many people tell you every day. It doesn't matter because you can't absorb it. Nice, so much judgment from me in nice. I know, you know what I've been playing with is instead of nice, it's kind. Like I can be kind, but that's very different than being nice. Maybe I'll do a live on that sometimes because it's a really big difference, even though it sounds so subtle. I think women also learn this in the workplace. Oh, for sure. Yeah, say more, Kathy, if you want about that. For sure. My sense is that women are supposed to be nice in the workplace, or they're called bitches, and not to stand out too much, right? Don't stand out too much. Like play the game, be a collaborator. And again, this is a generalization. I freaking hate generalizations. I will say it anyway to see who it fits for. I think men from the time they're young are encouraged, very highly encouraged, as children, as grown-ups in the workplace to take up space, to be bright lights. And I think it's a different, now again, what we keep talking about is what's the difference between being a bright light and coming from your ego. I think we all know the difference, right? Can you do thumbs up? Do you know the difference when somebody is in their authentic light versus when they're in their ego, even if they're saying the same thing or the picture is the same picture, they're using the same words? Do you feel like you know the difference when someone is in ego, fear-based, insecurity-based, of like telling you who they are and how amazing they are, or when people are really truly just showing you who they are from a place of non-ego? Yeah, Mary says she does. Yeah, be meek or be a bitch. Yeah, it seems like that's the only thing, right, for women. Okay, hold on, let me take a sip of water because my throat hurts. So take a moment while I do that. Just take a moment and take a couple of breaths at the same time. So, what would it mean? I know we have about 10 minutes. I want to do a meditation in a minute. What would it mean for you to own your light? What would it look like? Or why don't we say to own more of your light? And I want to say one more thing about that that's going to help you make that clearer for you. There are places you might own your light really easily. Like, I think I own my light as a parent really well. And then there are places where we own our light not so well. Maybe it's in the workplace. Maybe it's on social media. So it's not just like the feel-good scale. You can start working the feel-good scale to say, oh, I'm at a 6 physically, but I'm at a 10 spiritually, right? Or I'm at a 6 emotionally, but I'm at a 10 physically, right? You become subtler and subtler about bringing awareness to your full self. There might be places where you already own your light easily, or maybe you've even worked at it, but now you do it. So in the places you don't own your light, first of all, why don't you share where that is? Where are those places? And then what do you want to do? What does that look like? How would it be different if you owned your light in those places, whether that's everywhere in your life or in those specific places? What would you be more of? What would you give yourself permission to be more of? Will you write that down? Eric, can you be with the unknown of owning your life, how owning your life serves you, and by filling up with your light nourishes others? Yeah, that's a really good point. I actually have that in one of my notes. That's interesting. I literally say in one of my notes, it's scary because it's unknown. A lot of us don't know, so we make assumptions. If I own my light here, this is likely to happen. So we make assumptions based on the past or based on what we've seen other people happen, instead of being able to sit in the unknown. Be curious. What might happen if you show your light? You don't know it until you actually do it. Everything else is just an assumption that most of us have lived a lifetime believing an assumption, right? Like we were saying earlier, believing a core belief. So, Kirsanthi says, peace, confidence, and not second guessing, right? Those of us who are older, how many times have we now gotten confirmation that what we knew about somebody or what we knew about ourselves that we chose not to do because we wanted to play small, and after that, there's the consequence. You're like, oh, if I had only not second guessed myself. And now I'm not talking about being impulsive. I'm talking about what you know from your light, and that then you don't listen to because you don't want to play, you don't want to brag, or you don't, like some people were talking about, like I want to say things sometimes, but I'm scared people are going to judge me and tell me I'm bragging. Sammy says, I think I'd experience more joy and see more joy in places I haven't before. Yeah, that's the green zone lens, right? When we own our light, more of our light, guess what? We can see more light. It's like the aperture of a camera. If the aperture of your camera is this big, you're not going to be able to see much. You're just going to focus, and the brain is focusing on actually what's wrong in the world when it is that constricted like that. When it's in the stress response, it is literally wired to only see what's wrong, because in in caveman time, we needed to be always on the alert of what could be dangerous in the world. We don't have to live like that anymore. So I love that. When you open your lens, you open your light, you see more light. It is a fact. And even when you see people, somebody was talking earlier about, well, what do I do if others stay in the darkness? You can see with the eyes of light, and then you can just have compassion. And you can remember that until you were ready to own your light, nobody could tell you to do it. You were ready when you were ready. Can you give other people the same respect, the same honor? And you know something? Poking people to own their light more ain't never going to work. Loving them, because you know how much it hurts not to own our light. Loving them, bringing compassion to them, staying in your light. There is no better gift you can give another human being, and believing in their light. Not being a codependent and manipulating them, but believing in their light. With my mother, we both get stuck in past patterns. Yeah, exactly. It would have to allow me to be more present, right? Because when we don't own our lights, we're present to the thoughts of the past and of the future. Oh my God, in the past, when I've owned my light, I've been told, and oh my God, I'm going to project that onto the future. This is what's likely to happen. Owning my light, being my real self, the peace for my soul, right? Because we're not always, do you know how much energy it takes to mask our light? Do you know how much effort? And we become constricted like that. And our muscles, our energetic muscles, become constricted like that over a lifetime. Do you know how much energy and life force that takes? Imagine if you did not have, your light is automatically like the sun, it shines. We are the ones who block it. Do you get that? I'm going to say that again. Your light automatically, just like the sun, wants to shine. The sun is never not whole. Even when you put lots of clouds around it, the sun never stops shining. It never becomes smaller. The sun can't ever become small. Your light is never small. Your light is always the same size. You dim it by closing the aperture. That's it. But it's still the same size. So you don't have to effort to find your light. You just have to practice releasing the ways you have hidden it. This is really important. There's no effort. You don't have to build your light. You don't have to recover your light. You don't have to make your light bigger. It is already big. Whew. I'd get out of my own way. Yes. Places I own my light with my husband, and unfortunately not as much owning it everywhere else. Well, that's great, because for me, I find that I've owned my light the less with my husband. I feel like my old childhood patterns of intimacy show up the most with him and not in the rest of the world as much. Exploring from a place of light will allow me to shift. Yes, exactly. Everlasting peace and freedom from guilt and shame. And even, right, when we own our light, you wrote an amazing piece about reading the book, I Don't Give a Fuck. Oh my God, Raven, I started reading that on my way to Dallas last week. Best freaking book, and it goes so well with this work. Raven, write the name of the book down if people want to get it, because I really want to encourage you to read that. Reminded me so much of the methodology. And so remember, it isn't about never having guilt and shame. It's about when guilt and shame arise, you're like, yeah, thank you, sweetheart, love you. But that's not who I'm going to embody. I'm not going to stay addicted to you. I'm not going to let you stop me from shining. But guilt and shame will come. I don't know. I never not have guilt and shame. Maybe one day. I don't know. But I'm human. So I don't know if it'll ever go away. But it's how I relate to the guilt and shame. Do I get kidnapped by it? Do I believe it? Do I act from it? That's the difference. My friend's judgment shows up whenever I initiate showing my light. Yep, exactly. And that means that your light is hitting their darkness, and it reminds them unconsciously that they are light under. And it's like this, it shakes them up. And if you're not ready to own your light, it scares them, right? We get scared when there's something we know we need to change. I allow someone else's judgments to lead my light, right? Exactly. This little girl of mine, I'm going to let it. This little girl of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Beautiful. Oh, that made me so happy to sing. You guys should sing that all day today. Good image. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's the book. Guys, freaking I was on the plane and I was laughing out loud the whole time I was reading this book. You remind me to pick it up again. And I was like, I got to talk about this book. Maybe I should do that next week. But that means, yeah, I'll consider that actually talking about that book, because it really talks about life will never be perfect. And what this work teaches us is life will never be perfect. Stress is inevitable. Your response to it, your response to life is not inevitable. That's what this whole work is. It's self-liberation. It doesn't matter if people judge you, don't judge you. It doesn't matter. You get to choose how you want to show up in your full light or not. Love that book. You read it too? That means your light is hitting their darkness. Exactly. And it scares them. I've been on the other end of that. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, let's do just a couple, I try to keep it 45 minutes, these lives, but sometimes it gets so exciting, the topic, it goes a little longer. So let's do a, 3-4 minute meditation. So let's go ahead and close our eyes. And bring your attention fully to your breath. And notice after this 45 minutes we have spent together, what is moving through you? I imagine you have a swirl of thoughts and emotions. Maybe you feel inspired. Maybe you can't wait to get off this live and start shining your light. Maybe you have some nervousness. Maybe you have some doubt. Can I do it? That's okay. All of it. Welcome all of it. And welcome all of it with the eyes of curiosity and compassion and love and kindness. This is your humanity, all of it. And as I want to invite you to keep remembering, it is the way with which you relate to your humanity that allows you to respond differently, to not get kidnapped by the more shadow places in you. But you bring light and you bring light and you bring light through compassion and kindness. Through being undefended, through being open-hearted. And the more you allow yourself to welcome everything with love and kindness and curiosity, I promise you, the brighter your light becomes and people want to be around you. Because you're not hiding. You're not hiding your darkness, which we spoke about last week. You're not hiding your light. You become a vessel of unconditional love. And there's nothing that is more important if you want to create heaven on earth and be an active participant in creating heaven on this earth than being a vessel of unconditional love for yourself and for others. Take a deep breath in and out. And if it feels good for you, declare to the universe right now on the live or the replay, I am excited to own my light. Say it if it feels good. I am excited to own my life, my life too, and to keep practicing. And as we know, as we keep talking about in these lives, when you declare your intention to the universe will then bring you over the next few days, the next few weeks, everything that you need to challenge this practice, to strengthen you in this practice. So pay attention to what shows up this week. You have stated the intention. I want to own my light. I am excited to practice owning my light. Feel it. Let yourself feel the excitement of what that might become for you, how you might expand. And then trust that everything you need for you to experience the highest practice of this intention will be gifted to you by the universe. And pay attention to the how. On your next inhale, open your eyes. And will you write one word as we complete, or two words of how you feel in this moment? One or two words while I take a sip of water. I am excited to practice owning my light. Inspired. Right? Inspired is such a beautiful word. It means filled with spirit. Ready. Energized. You see, you guys are all talking about green zone states of being. Open, flowing, filled with life force, elevated and grateful, sparkly. Fuck yes. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for being on. Again, if you're on the live, you've been on the live or on the replay. it is my honor to be here and to prepare for these lives and to then show up in these lives. It's really a gift for me. And see you next Thursday. Not sure the what, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the what is yet, what the topic is, but I will trust and I will see you then.